I've had a message from Rachel, Clapham Junction and Horsham, apparently, who says, "Dear Thucydides, we were wondering, do you have anything to say about not murdering the people you're confined with for the next 3 months, especially if they are family members?" Well, what I would say is, of course, don't. Bad idea. Very, very bad idea. Normally a sign of irretrievable social breakdown. But perhaps that is easy for me to say, because, of course, one of the things which we ancient Greeks know far, far better than you lot is preparing and enduring sieges. How to survive. How to face the all too likely possibility that your enemies are going to turn up with a large army. Well, you've got to be ready. Withdraw within the walls, see them off, wait for the winter to come, and they will almost certainly bugger off again. So it's all about preparation. It's all about supplies, and of course not just making sure that you have got sufficient stuff in your storehouses and larders and so forth, but ideally what you want is what we had in Athens, a continuing supply line. Build walls down to your harbour, supplies can carry on coming through, you don't need to worry about the siege at all. I think your equivalent is this sort of distance delivery thing, where rather than walls keeping off the virus, it's all about maintaining that space, depositing the supplies, delivery person withdraws, you come forward, take the supplies, so on and so forth, and then of course the second line of defence, the disinfectants. So, basic ancient Greek principle brought up to date, so to speak. And with this sort of preparation, well, the people of Plataea held off the Thebans for at least a year. Even other sort of cities could do, a good couple of months. Even the Melians held off the Athenians until the following year. It's perfectly straightforward, unless, and this is where I come back to Rachel's question, unless things start falling apart inside. Now, there are always factions, there are always divisions within any community, any sort of household. What becomes a problem is when those divisions start taking over, when they start fracturing the overall unity. What happens if one of these factions, to take a random and trivial example, suddenly decides it wants to hand over the city to Brasidas instead of waiting for the Athenian relief force, which is just on the verge of arriving, if only for some unfortunately adverse winds? Or a modern equivalent, what happens if someone in your previously united community suddenly announces that they want to go and have a barbecue with some friends, let down the defences, open up the entire community to attack? Terrible, terrible idea, but how do you stop them? Or what if the struggle for control of the vital instrument of the television remote, the eternal conflict between the Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans and the Mrs. Brown's Boys fans, escalates into violence? Well, again, the community cannot hold. What my history shows you, for the most part, is the terrible consequences of allowing this to happen as a dire warning. What can prevent it? Well, not just unity, but the sorts of strong political institutions which allow differences to be negotiated, to be evened out. An emphasis on rational deliberation and argument, on having a true understanding of the situation and what can be done about it and the likely course of events, rather than relying on emotion and rhetoric and so forth. taking turns ruling one another, taking turns to establish the principles under which the community should go forward, rather than one person setting themselves up as a tyrant. And you might even say the use of the lot to allocate relatively trivial things like which television program you're going to watch. But above all, it is a matter of keeping in mind the alternative. What happens if the siege fails? Well, they're going to slaughter all of the men. They're going to sell the women and children into slavery, or at least the epidemiological equivalent. Stay strong, stay united, maintain those defences.